I never thought I'd be in this position. Looking into 20 years back, sitting at the small kitchen table, looking at the pile of bills, I felt the weight of every single one pressing down on me. My wife was asleep in the next room. I didn't want to wake her, but I couldn't stop thinking about our son's school fees, the rent that was overdue, and the little things we needed just to survive. Life had been hard. I worked during the day, but the pay was barely enough. Some nights, I would lie awake, listening to the faint hum of the city outside, wondering how we were going to make it another month. I wanted to be strong for my family, but desperation has a way of creeping into your bones. Then one evening, a friend told me about a night job. He said it was simple work, just maintenance, organizing, cleaning, normal stuff. He promised it paid well, enough to cover the bills, and have a little extra. It sounded like a lifeline. The first time I walked into that office building at night, I felt a mix of hope and fear. It was quiet, almost too quiet, and the long shadowed hallways made my chest tighten. But I told myself, this job might save us. I clocked in, met a few people briefly, and tried to focus. The work was straightforward, nothing complicated. As I settled into the rhythm of the night, I felt a small spark of relief. For the first time in months, it felt like maybe, just maybe, we could breathe again. But that spark didn't last. Something about the building, the people, and the shadows in the corners of my vision made me uneasy. I couldn't put my finger on it yet, but I sensed there was more going on here than anyone was willing to say. And that's when the real story began. The first few nights were quiet, almost unnervingly so. I learned the routine quickly: clock in, check the equipment, organize the supplies, make sure nothing was out of place, and wait for the night to pass. The work itself wasn't hard, but the silence made every small sound feel louder than it should have been. It didn't take long for me to notice something strange. There was a room at the far end of the hall that no one seemed to talk about. Employees would disappear into it during the night, and the next morning, they would come out as if nothing had happened. No one mentioned what they were doing inside, and no one ever entered it during the day. Curiosity gnawed at me, but so did fear. Something about that room felt off. My gut told me to stay away, but my mind kept asking questions I didn't want to answer. One night, I casually mentioned it to my partner at work, hoping he might laugh it off or give a simple explanation. He looked at me carefully, his face serious. "Listen," he said quietly. "Just do your work. Don't interfere in other people's business. You don't want trouble here." His words should have been enough to stop me. They were meant to be a warning. For a while, I listened. I focused on my own tasks, keeping my eyes on my work and trying to ignore the odd sounds and shadows. But each night, that curiosity grew stronger. The unknown behind that door was calling to me, a quiet voice in the back of my mind saying, "You need to know." I told myself I was only being careful, but I couldn't shake the feeling that something was wrong. Something bigger than me, something dangerous. And slowly, I started to realize that this job, this night, this building was going to be far more than I had ever bargained for. Night after night, I began to notice patterns that didn't make sense. Shadows moved in corners where there shouldn't have been anyone. Whispers echoed down hallways, soft but deliberate. Stopping the moment I turned my head. Doors that were usually closed creaked open without explanation. And the room at the far end, the one everyone avoided talking about, seemed to breathe with a life of its own. The first few nights, I told myself it was my imagination. The fatigue from the night shifts, the quiet, the isolation, it was all making me paranoid. But paranoia feels different when your instincts are screaming at you, and mine were loud. The silence of the building started to weigh on me. Footsteps in empty halls, distant sounds of movement, the occasional metallic clink, I noticed them all. The other employees didn't react, never glanced my way, never spoke of it. Their calmness made me more uneasy, not less. I remembered my partner's warning. "Just do your work. Don't interfere." But that voice in my head, the one telling me something was wrong, was stronger now. Curiosity began to outweigh fear. I realized I couldn't ignore it any longer. I had to know what was happening behind that locked door. I waited until the night was quiet, until the others had disappeared into the shadows and the building felt completely empty. And then I made my decision. I was going to investigate. The night was silent as I approached the door. My heart was hammering in my chest, each beat echoing in the empty hallway. I paused for a moment listening. Nothing. Just the faint hum of the building's ventilation and the distant ticking of a clock somewhere far away. I took a deep breath and pushed the door open. The room was empty, or so it seemed. Nothing but bare walls and a dusty floor. My first instinct was to turn back. Maybe I'm overthinking this, I told myself. But something made me step inside, curiosity stronger than fear. I walked slowly, my shoes making soft sounds on the worn floor. That's when I noticed it, a faint outline on the floor, almost hidden in the dust. I bent down, brushing my hand over it, and suddenly, part of the floor shifted beneath my fingers. My heart leapt. A panel slowly opened, revealing a narrow staircase leading down into darkness. I froze. My hands shook uncontrollably, and a cold sweat ran down my back. My mind raced. Who knows about this? How long has it been here? What is down there? For a long moment, I just stared, paralyzed by fear and disbelief. Then the curiosity pushed me forward. One careful step after another, I descended into the basement. The air grew cooler, damp, and heavy. The smell was strange, metallic, and faintly sweet, like something that shouldn't be there. I kept my phone in hand, its flashlight cutting through the shadows. My breathing came in shallow bursts. Every creak of the stairs, every echo of my footsteps, made my heart jump. At the bottom I saw it, the truth. The basement wasn't empty. Machines, boxes, and materials filled the room, all arranged in ways that made no sense for a normal company. My stomach dropped. This wasn't what I had signed up for. As I moved carefully, I realized that I was discovering something dangerous. Something illegal. Something that could ruin lives, maybe even mine. The fear hit me in waves, making my hands shake so badly I could barely hold the phone steady. But I couldn't turn back now. Not after finding this. Not after seeing the lies. I knew one thing for certain. Whatever was happening here, I had to get evidence. And I had to survive it. The basement was nothing like I expected. It wasn't unfinished or abandoned. It was active, organized, secret. Dim lights hung from the ceiling, casting long shadows across the room. Large boxes were stacked neatly against the walls. Some were sealed, others partially open, just enough for me to see things that made my stomach tighten. Equipment I couldn't recognize. Materials that clearly didn't belong in a normal company storage space. Everything about it felt hidden on purpose. This wasn't extra inventory. This wasn't a mistake. My chest grew tight as the truth settled in. The job I was told about, the normal night work, had been a lie. The company wasn't just bending rules. They were doing something illegal. Something serious. I stood there, frozen, listening to my own breathing. My hands started shaking again, harder this time. I felt small, exposed, like the walls themselves were watching me. Slowly, I reached for my phone. I knew it was risky, but I also knew this might be my only chance. I turned on the camera and began recording, moving carefully, quietly, capturing everything I could without making a sound. As I filmed, my thoughts raced. I can't believe this is real. I walked into this without knowing. If this comes out, lives could be destroyed. For a moment, I thought about my family. My wife's face came into my mind. Then my son. If this place was exposed, it would be dangerous, for them and for me. Still, another thought pushed through the fear. Someone has to tell the truth. I told myself I'd record just enough and leave. I wouldn't confront anyone. I wouldn't act brave. I just needed proof. Enough to show the police. Enough to protect myself. But as I slowly turned back toward the staircase, my heart sank. I had stayed too long. I moved slowly, every step measured, every breath controlled. My phone was still in my hand, the screen dimmed as low as I could make it. All I wanted was to reach the staircase, close the hidden floor behind me, and pretend I had never seen any of this. Then it happened. My foot hit something hard on the ground. The sound was small, But in that silent basement, it was thunder. The noise echoed.
Once. Twice.
I froze. My heart stopped beating for a second, then came back harder than before. I held my breath, hoping, praying, that no one had heard it. Footsteps answered me.
Heavy. Fast.
Coming closer. A voice cut through the darkness. Who's there? Before I could move, the lights snapped on.
Bright.
Blinding. I raised my hands without thinking. Faces appeared from the shadows, men I recognized from work, and one I had only seen from a distance. The boss. His eyes locked onto me.
Cold. Angry.
So, he said slowly, you were curious. I tried to speak, but no words came out. My mouth was dry. My hand shook so badly my phone slipped and hit the floor. One of them picked it up, watching the screen carefully.
His face changed.
That was when the first blow came. I fell to the ground. Pain exploded in my side, then my back.
Kicks.
Fists. Voices shouting over each other. I curled in on myself, trying to protect my head, my ribs. Every hit felt like it might be the last. Between the pain, I heard threats. You saw too much. You should have listened. No one will believe you. When they were done, I could barely move. They dragged me deeper into the basement, into a small dark room with no windows. The door slammed shut and the lock clicked. I was alone. Hours passed. Maybe days. I couldn't tell. There was no light, no clock, no sound but my own breathing and the pounding of my heart. My body ached, but the fear was worse than the pain. I thought about my family constantly. My wife waking up and finding me gone. My son asking where I was. I imagined them coming to the company, asking questions, and being lied to. That thought broke me. I pressed my forehead against the cold wall and cried quietly, afraid even my tears might be heard. I didn't know if I would ever leave that room. I didn't know if anyone would come for me. All I knew was this. I had uncovered something dangerous. And now my life and my family's were hanging by a thread. While I was locked away in that dark room, my family was losing their minds without me. I didn't know it then, but later, my wife told me everything. Every detail still hurts when I think about it. When I didn't come home that morning, she wasn't angry at first. She thought maybe I had stayed late, maybe my phone battery had died. But as the hours passed, worry crept in. By nightfall, fear had taken over. She went to the company the next day. She told them my name. She asked for me calmly at first. The people at the front desk looked confused. They checked their records, whispered among themselves, then told her something that made her legs weak. They said I had not shown up for work. They said they didn't know me. She argued.
She begged.
She described me, my job, my shift. But they stayed calm, almost too calm. They told her maybe I had the wrong address. Maybe I worked somewhere else. She left the building shaking, her heart pounding with fear. That same day, my family filed a missing person report. They told the police everything, where I worked, the night shift, the last time I was seen. The police began their investigation, visiting the company, asking questions, checking records. But the company had already covered its tracks. There was no sign of me. No security footage. No records. No witnesses. It was as if I had never existed there at all. Days passed with no answers. The police kept searching, but every lead went cold. And while my family waited in fear, I sat in darkness, wondering if they were looking for me, or if I had already been erased. I didn't know how much time had passed when the door finally opened. The sudden light burned my eyes. I lifted my head slowly, expecting more pain. Instead, I saw the boss standing there, calm and clean, as if nothing had happened. He looked at me for a long moment before speaking. "You're causing us problems," he said quietly. I later understood what he meant. The police had started asking too many questions. They were coming more often. They were digging deeper. And keeping me hidden forever or killing me would only bring more attention to the company. So, they made a different decision. They pulled me up and took me into another room. One of the men held my phone in his hand. He unlocked it, scrolled through it slowly, then turned the screen toward me. Everything was gone. Every video, every photo, every recording, all the proof I had risked my life to get deleted. I felt something break inside me. Then came the real fear. The boss sat down across from me and placed a folder on the table. He opened it. Inside were pictures. My wife, my son, our home, addresses, phone numbers, places we went, times we were alone. My body started shaking uncontrollably. I couldn't stop it. My teeth chattered. My chest felt tight, like I couldn't breathe. I wanted to scream, but no sound came out. He leaned closer. "If you talk to the police," he said calmly, "your family disappears." Slowly. That was the moment I knew I was trapped. Not by walls or locks, but by fear. They told me I would be released. They would give me money. Enough to start again somewhere else. Another city. A new life. "All you have to do," he said, "is forget what you saw." I nodded. Not because I agreed, but because my family's lives depended on it. They let me stand. My legs felt weak. My hands still shook as they led me away. I was free. But I had never felt more imprisoned in my life. They didn't let me go home. Not yet. Not until everything was ready. A few days later, one of the men came with an envelope.
Cash.
Enough to start over in another city. He handed it to me silently, watching my reaction. I could feel the weight of it, not the money, but what it represented. I had no choice. "You leave tonight," he said. "Go where we tell you. Start fresh. Forget everything. Forget us." I wanted to argue. I wanted to go to the police, to expose them, to make sure no one else got hurt. But the memory of the folder, the pictures of my family flashed in my mind. I could not risk them. Not for anything. So I agreed. That night, they drove me out of the city. The streets were dark, barely lit, unfamiliar. My heart pounded with every turn of the car. My hands were still shaking, not from the cold, but from fear, betrayal, and exhaustion. When we arrived, they dropped me off at a random street. No address. No warning. Just the envelope in my pocket and a silent warning. "Don't come back." I looked back once. The city's skyline glowed in the distance. Somewhere in it, the basement I had discovered, the evidence I had recorded, they had cleared it all. No traces left. No proof. Nothing to take to the police. I swallowed hard, trying to steady my shaking hands.
A part of me wanted to cry.
Another part wanted to scream. I felt hollow, empty, trapped in my own thoughts. I realized the truth then. I was alive, but I had lost something much more important than freedom. Trust. Safety. My sense of control. And worst of all, I could do nothing about it. I had survived. But the company had won in ways I couldn't fight back against. All I could do now was leave the city, leave the past behind, and hope my family would never have to know what I had seen. I arrived home just as the first light of morning peeked through the curtains. The streets were quiet, almost peaceful, but my heart was still racing. My hands were shaky, my legs weak from exhaustion, and the weight of everything I had endured. When my wife opened the door, her face lit up with relief, and for a moment, I felt a pang of guilt. She had spent the entire night and early morning worrying, wondering if something terrible had happened to me. I wanted to collapse into her arms, to tell her everything, but I knew I couldn't. I was robbed, I said slowly, keeping my voice steady. Someone grabbed me last night. They took my bag, my phone. I don't know, they just left me somewhere. Her eyes widened. Robbed? Kidnapped? Are you okay? I nodded, forcing a weak smile. Someone helped me. They left me safe. That's all that matters. She pulled me inside and wrapped her arms around me. I could feel her trembling, her relief mixing with lingering fear. I wanted to tell her the truth, the company, the basement, the threats, but I couldn't. Not yet. Not if I wanted to keep her and our son safe. As we sat at the kitchen table, I tried to eat, tried to act normal. But every bite felt heavy. Every shadow in the room reminded me of the basement. Every creak of the floor made me flinch. I was home. My family was safe. But inside, I felt hollow. I had survived. But the weight of what I knew, what I had seen, and what I had been forced to hide would stay with me forever. The days that followed were quiet, but heavy. I stayed home with my family, trying to act normal, but my mind was never at peace. Every sound, every knock on the door, every phone ring made my heart jump. I didn't sleep well. I didn't laugh easily. The memory of the basement, the threats, and the beating stayed with me, like a shadow I couldn't shake. We avoided the old city completely. I didn't return to that job.
I didn't visit those streets.
The thought of those walls, those rooms, the hidden staircase, it made my skin crawl. My family didn't need to know the truth. Their safety was more important than anything else. By the end of the month, we had moved. A small apartment in a different city. A new place, new streets, new faces. My wife tried to make it feel like home. My son ran through the rooms, laughing, and for a moment, I let myself feel relief. But even then, deep inside, I couldn't forget what had happened. I realized something important during those weeks. Survival isn't just about staying alive. It's about protecting those you love, even if it means hiding the truth, even if it means living with fear and guilt. I learned that life is fragile, that danger can hide behind ordinary doors, that some battles are not fought in public, they're fought quietly, in the heart, where no one else can see. And even though the memories still shake me sometimes, I am grateful. Grateful to be alive. Grateful for my family. Grateful that, somehow, we survived. I still wake in the night, remembering, shaking quietly under the covers. But when I look at my wife and my son, I know it was worth it. I would do it all over again to protect them.